What's up, guys? We got UFC Vegas 104 Vettori vs Dolidze 2, the rematch, full card picks, and betting breakdown. And I'm excited to get into this card. I think that there are a lot of great matchups and a lot of good mismatchups at that as well. So let's go ahead and get into it with the first bout of the night being Yuneisy Duben versus Carli Judice. And I love this matchup here. You have two relatively unproven prospects, and I'm going to have to side with the Yuneisy Duben. Surprisingly, I think Yuneisy Duben can get this done. She's coming off of that brutal knockout where she landed the overhand right on Shannon Clark and absolutely cleaned her slate. I mean, it was absolutely impressive, the knockout. And then you have the win via corner stoppage over in FFC. Then you have the head kick knockout over Andrea Velasquez. I mean, Yuneisy Duben has a very, very good striking skill set. She has good combinations. She has clean, quick hands. And she's got snappy high and low kicks. She can mix it up really, really well to the head, to the body, to the calves of her opponents. Not only that, she brings a very devastating knockout power ability. So I gotta favor Duben. I think one of the biggest factors here is going to be the speed and the power advantage for Yuneisy Duben. I think she's going to be able to land good inside shots as Carli Judice tries to close the distance. I also think that Duben is going to have a ability to take this to the ground as well. She has decent grappling ability. She's a very well-rounded fighter, I believe. So I gotta favor Yuneisy Duben over Carli Judice because also let's flip to the side of Judice. She really hasn't proven herself. I mean, she has gone in there with better competition than Yuneisy Duben. I'll give her that. She's been in there with Gabriela Fernandez where she lost split decision. Then the loss to Ernesto Carasite where she lost split decision. I mean, those are both relatively good fighters, but I think Yuneisy Duben is just as good as a striker as both of those girls. So I gotta favor Duben. I really think that she's gonna be able to close the distance, be able to land some nice inside power hooks, some nice counter strikes coming from the side of Duben. I gotta favor her. I think Carli Judice has just not really improved in her fighting game. Every single time she comes out, her striking looks decent, but she's not getting better in any aspect of the fight game. And I really don't understand how she's a negative 500 in this. It really just blows my mind how she's a negative 500 and she hasn't proven herself. Anytime she gets in the cage with UFC competition, she dwindles and fades. She's just not a UFC caliber fighter, and I think Yuneisy Duben is going to go in there and she's going to show it. So my pick is Yuneisy Duben, and let's go ahead and look at the odds on this fight. The odds sitting at a plus 330 for Yuneisy Duben and Carli Judice sitting at a negative 400. Like I said, these odds are incredibly wide for no reason at all. What has Carli Judice done? She has gone in there and faced Gabriela Fernandez and Carasite, but lost both times and didn't show any improvement in either one. So I gotta favor Duben. I get that she hasn't faced the level of competition, but I gotta say this is really a 50-50 fight, and I am favoring Duben with the power and striking advantage over a Carli Judice. Over 1.5 sitting at a negative 325. Over 2.5 sitting at a negative 170. I favor the over. I think that Yuneisy Duben could land a knockout shot, but I think it's more than likely to end via the scorecards, and I think it's going to be Yuneisy Duben landing the better strikes and doing more damage to a Carli Judice and getting the better of her on the scorecards. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Josiane Nunes versus Priscila Cachoeira. And the pick for me is going to be Josiane Nunes over Priscila Cachoeira. I think that Josiane Nunes, though coming off of 2 losses, those were great losses. I mean, the loss to Cavalcanti is not a bad look. I mean, Cavalcanti is one of the best strikers in the division, is very slick and very well-rounded. So that is not a bad loss. Then the loss to Chelsea Chandler, where I can't sugarcoat it. I mean, it's not the greatest look at all. Chelsea Chandler is not the greatest fighter at all, to be completely honest. So that is not the greatest look. But then you have the win over Zara Farin, who is tall, similar to Priscila. And then you have Ramon Pascal, where she got the unanimous decision over. And then you have the knockout over Bia Maleki, who is super tall. I mean, she has faced somebody similar to Priscila in the sense of their height advantage. And Priscila has a little bit less of a reach advantage, though. She's at a disadvantage to Josiane. So I think that's a even bigger factor, and I think that this favors Josiane Nunes even more. She's faced somebody that's just as tall as Priscila, but even more reach than Priscila, and she handled her beautifully and ended up knocking her out. I feel like she can do something similar. I don't think it's going to end in a knockout, but I do think that she can beat her in a similar way, eating away to the body, mixing it up with her crafty combinations, her quick hands, along with her long, stiff jab. Because of the fact that she has that reach advantage, I think she can get the better of a Priscila Cachoeira. I really do. On the feet, I think that she has the advantage. I think that she's going to be able to mix it up better. I think that she's going to be able to stand on that outside, pick apart Cachoeira if she needs to. She has good inside boxing as well if Cachoeira wants to enter that pocket and test her limits. I think that Josiane Nunes can definitely catch her on the inside, can even piece her up on the outside with her long jab and her reach advantage and get the better of her on the feet. I think that in terms of grappling, she has good enough grappling to keep this on the feet and to not let Priscila take her down. And if she does take her down, she has relatively good get up ability and explodes back up to her feet relatively good. So I gotta favor the side of Nunes. But on the other side of it, Priscila is no bum, no slouch. She's not bad, but she is more of a brawler. She likes to be in your face. She likes to make you uncomfortable, likes to put volume on you, likes to throw a lot of strikes. Though when she ends up doing that, sometimes she kind of enters the pocket and she just likes to slug it out with her opponents, which I think is a big disadvantage for her here. I think if she wants to get in the pocket and start throwing these wild and looping shots, she's going to get tagged by a Nunes in the pocket 110%, because she tends to throw these looping shots. Like, I'm talking about wild that you could see a mile away. So I think Nunes, with her counter-striking abilities, can find her inside that pocket if she wants to try and test that, and she will end up catching her with a counter hook on the inside. Give me Josiane Nunes to beat a Priscila Cachoeira. I do think it goes the distance, and I do think it's going to be Nunes getting the better of her via decision. And let's look at the odds here, with Josiane Nunes sitting at a negative 175, which I agree with the odds here. Priscila Cachoeira sitting at a plus 150. I think Nunes has fought a similar type of style to Cachoeira, and she's beaten that style before, and I think she could beat that style again. And I think it's going to ultimately go to the scorecards, and I think it's Nunes getting the better in the striking exchanges and even the grappling exchanges, and finding success in outstriking, outworking, and outdamaging a Priscila Cachoeira. Over 1.5 sitting at a negative 350, over 2.5 sitting at a negative 190. Like I said, I think it hits the scorecards, and I think it's Josiane Nunes getting the victory. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card, in which is a banger in André Lima versus Daniel Barez. And I gotta go with André Lima. I feel like that's the only way to go in this fight. I really do. I think that André Lima is such a well-rounded prospect on the rise, with devastating knockout power, with clean hands, with quick combinations, and he's not only a phenomenal striker with devastating knockout power and clean, quick accuracy and nasty combinations. No, he has a good grappling skill set too. Like I said, he's a well-rounded fighter. He knows how to take you down. He knows how to maintain control of you when he gets you down. He has a very good ability to advance positions when he has you on the ground. And he's got quick transitions and tricky submissions. So I gotta favor André Lima. And let's look at who he versed before in Felipe Dos Santos. In his last fight, he out-grappled Dos Santos, in which many people thought Dos Santos had the grappling edge, including me. I thought Dos Santos was going to be able to out-grapple a André Lima, but Lima showed me that he had that dog in him and that he's a very well-rounded striker and grappler. So I gotta favor the side of André Lima over Daniel Barez. Daniel Barez is no bum, no slouch. He has the win over Victor Altamirano, but before that got submitted by a Rafael Filho. So I gotta favor Andre Lima. I do think that Daniel Barez has a very good striking skill set. He's very quick in the pocket. He's got nasty combinations. He's got devastating knockout power as well. But he kind of lacks in the grappling area. I think that the grappling advantage has to go to Andre Lima. I think that striking wise, it's a very close, very back and forth battle between these two. But I think Andre's ability to strike and grapple and mix them together very, very well, I gotta favor the side of Andre Lima. I think that he's a dog, and I don't see his undefeated streak being ended by a Daniel Barez. And let's go ahead and look at the odds here. With Andre Lima sitting at a negative 350, Daniel Barez sitting at a plus 285. I like Andre Lima. I really think that he's a very skillful fighter that's very good in every aspect of the fight game, and I think that he has a clear-cut grappling advantage, and I think striking-wise, he can get the better of Daniel Barez for sure. He has quicker striking. I think that he's going to be able to enter and exit the pocket against Daniel Barez. I think that he's landing the better strikes on a Daniel Barez. Over 1.5 sitting at a negative 375. Over 2.5 sitting at a negative 200. I agree with the odds. I think this fight hits the scorecards, and I think it's Andre Lima absolutely dominating a Daniel Barez for all 3 rounds. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Josias Musasa versus Carlos Vera. And I love this matchup. This is a great matchup where the pick for me is Josias Musasa. I mean, he is a up-and-coming prospect that is highly touted with amazing talent in terms of striking, in terms of grappling, in terms of every single aspect of the fight game. He is a absolute powerhouse. He is coming off of the win over Otari Tanzalovi, who is a training partner of Merab, and he had really, really good grappling abilities, but Josias Musasa was able to snub those takedowns and get the better of him on the feet and outstrike and outwork him. So that was a very impressive win to see him kind of fight and really overcome the grappling of a Otari Tanzalovi. And then you have the win via flying knee over an Impact, then the win via knockout over Sabre. I mean, he has a lot of knockout wins. He is a very explosive fighter that really applies pressure on you throughout the entire fight. He has good striking. He has that devastating knockout power, like I said. He's got quick hands. He's very good at entering and exiting the pocket. He's got that long, stiff jab. I like Josias Musasa. Not only is he a very good striker, he's a very good grappler with solid takedown defense, as we saw in the Otari Tanzalovi fight. And he has a very explosive get-up game. So I gotta favor the side of Josias Musasas here. I mean, Carlos Vera is coming off of a loss to Rinya Nakamura. And then you have the win over Isaiah Gutierrez over in Fury before that. But to be completely honest, I mean, Carlos Vera is just going to get absolutely worked here. I mean, I don't even want to sugarcoat it. He has a good striking skill set, but he mainly uses his kicks over his hands, in which Josias mainly uses his hands over his kicks. So I gotta favor the hands over kicks, because what's more than likely to land? It's the hands over the kicks. I do think that Carlos Vera has a decent grappling background, but I think Musasa is going to keep this on the feet. His grappling in terms of defense is really, really stellar. So I'm favoring Josias Musasa to get the better of Carlos Vera, and I think he's going to knock him out. I think he's going to knock out a Carlos Vera, and I think it's going to be absolutely brutal. And let's go ahead and look at the odds here on this fight, with Carlos Vera sitting at a plus 600, Musasa sitting at a negative 900. I want to be completely honest here. I know I'm picking Musasas by knockout, but these odds are incredibly wide. Incredibly wide. Musasa is a very, very talented, skillful prospect on the rise, but let's not forget he is still relatively unproven. So for him to have a negative 900 tag, I would be careful, even though I do believe he's going to absolutely clean Carlos's clock. I do think these odds are very, very wide. Josias, again, sitting at a negative 900. I do believe he's going to get the better of a Carlos Vera. I do think that he's going to land that power shot because he's very elusive. He's very good at maneuvering, and he's very good at putting himself in places to use that power to the best of his ability and knock out his opponent. So I'm going with Josias Musasa by knockout, over 1.5, sitting at a negative 160, under 1.5, sitting at a plus 130. I like the under 2.5 if you can find that somewhere. I think that you're going to see a Musasa be able to close the distance and be able to land the powerful shots on a Carlos Vera and get the better of him via knockout. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card, which is a banger in Diyar Njokuani, I don't know how to say it, or versus Brendson Ribeiro. Oh my gosh, that was an absolute tongue twister from myself right there. Diyar Njokuani versus Brendson Ribeiro, and my pick is going to be Diyar. I think Diyar gets the better of Brendson. I really do. He is 10-0. He is coming off of the impressive win over Barez, where he head kicked him and then followed him up with some nasty ground and pound. And then you have the win over Emiliano Sordi over in UAE. So he's not facing these bums, these slouches over in these other divisions. No, he's facing some relatively good fighters. Sordi was in the UFC and had some moments in the UFC. And then you have the win over André, in which he proved himself there as well. He had moments in that fight, and he had some nice hooks. He mixes it up really, really well to the head and to the body. He's got that devastating knockout power. He is a very well-rounded fighter in the sense that his striking is phenomenal. He has nasty uppercuts, those crafty combinations on the inside. He's got snappy high and low kicks, which is really, really impressive for somebody in the light heavyweight division. Kicks are not really known, to be completely honest, and especially landing those high kicks like that and with those devastating power. I mean, that is none other for Diyar. I really don't know anybody else with such impressive kicks in this light heavyweight division other than Poatan. And then you have the side of it where he is not only a good striker, he's a good grappler. He knows how to maintain control of you when he gets you down. He has devastating ground and pound, and he knows how to advance position. So I think Diyar, anywhere this fight goes, whether it's striking, whether it's grappling, I think it's going to favor him. I get that he doesn't have a lot of UFC experience, and on the other side of it, you have Brendson Ribeiro, who has a good amount of UFC experience with the win over Kyle Machado, where he didn't look the best. I mean, Kyle Machado had moments on him, and then you had the loss to Magomed Gadzhiesulov, who is no longer in the UFC. The loss to Mingyang Zhang, which isn't a bad look. Mingyang Zhang is one of the best of the best and is an absolute savage. So that is not a bad look. Then you have the win to Bruno Lopez, where he landed a nice right. A nice straight right, and then followed it up to the ground and absolutely beat the crap out of Bruno Lopez. I mean, Brendson Ribeiro, he has his moments. I mean, he has devastating knockout power. He has his moments. He's got clean hands. He mixes it up relatively well. Take that with a grain of salt. But ultimately, he lacks in the grappling department. He is sometimes a little bit awkward and clunky in the striking department, trying to headhunt a little bit too much, which is something that I don't think is going to be good here for somebody like Ribeiro against Diyar. I think that headhunting is going to get him in trouble. I think that he's going to run into a counter shot, and I think he's going to get laid out by a Diyar. I really do. We know that he lacks in the grappling department, but I think that Diyar is mainly going to use his striking because I think he's better. I think he's more slick with his striking. I think that he's more powerful than Brendson Ribeiro, and I think he's going to knock him the fuck out. I really do. I think that Brendson Ribeiro never shows that he's progressively getting better. Honestly, he's progressively getting worse. After the loss to Magomed Gadzhiesulov, the win over Kyle Machado really wasn't the greatest. Kyle isn't the best of the best. I'm not saying Diyar is either, but I really see him being able to run up these rankings relatively fast. And I think Brendson Ribeiro is a stepping stone that he can absolutely walk over. And I think he's going to. Give me Diyar over Brendson Ribeiro, and I think it's going to be by brutal knockout. Diyar sitting at a negative 340. Brendson Ribeiro sitting at a plus 280. I like Diyar, like I said, over 1.5 sitting at a negative 145. Over 2.5 sitting at a plus 145. I like the under 2.5, sitting at a negative 190. I think Diyar is going to find the counter shot on a Brendson Ribeiro, who sometimes gets overzealous and headhunts and leaves himself open for counter shots. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card, in what is Sam Hughes versus Stephanie Luciano. And I was going back and forth with this, but the pick for me is going to be Sam Hughes, which I know is going to shock a lot of you guys, but I got to go with Sam Hughes. I mean, dude, Sam Hughes took the split decision win over Victoria Dudikova. Yes, she lost to Yasmin Yargi, which a lot of people are going to say has a similar style to Stephanie Luciano. But Yasmin Yargi has a lot more experience in the UFC, has fought a lot better of competition in the UFC, and has really developed. So that is not a bad loss. Then you have the win over Jacqueline Amarin. Then you have the loss to Piera Rodriguez. Then the win over Elise Reed. I mean, the UFC is essentially handing her all the prospects on the rise, and she's just answering their call. I mean, she's literally telling them who's good, who's bad, and she's the gatekeeper in a sense. So I think that Sam Hughes, though being that gatekeeper, I think that she can be a Stephanie Luciano. I don't think that Stephanie Luciano is this up-and-coming prospect with a huge amount of talent. Yes, she has good striking abilities and relatively good grappling abilities, but I think that Sam Hughes can outdog her. I really do. I think that with Sam Hughes' good striking, with her quick hands, with her crafty combinations, and the way that she mixes up her striking with her grappling, I think that she can get the better of Stephanie Luciano. I really do. She's got solid grappling with strong takedowns. She knows how to maintain control of you. I get that she's a little bit inconsistent, but if you really look at the opposition that she's faced, she has faced some of the best and has beaten some of the best, has welcomed them into the UFC, and has put on a damn good performance. So I gotta favor Sam Hughes. Stephanie Luciano won against Talita Alcanar in her UFC debut, where they drawed, and then she faced her again for the rematch and had a very good, impressive win over her dominantly. But again, she's only faced Alan Nakar. I believe that Alan Nakar is a lot different than a Sam Hughes. I think Sam Hughes is a way tougher and a way more gritty opponent. She also brings a lot better of combinations and striking than a Alan Nakar, where Alan Nakar was mainly trying to grapple, and I think that even Sam Hughes is a little bit better of a grappler in that sense. So I really feel like that Sam Hughes is going to be able to enter and exit the pocket, be able to use her striking with her grappling, be able to land some takedowns, be able to garner some control time, and be able to outwork, and outstrike a Stephanie Luciano. I get that Luciano has a very solid Muay Thai fighting style. Don't get me wrong. She has that long, stiff jab, and she likes to strike from the outside. But I really feel as though Sam Hughes is going to be able to enter and exit the pocket, really be able to just, in a sense, keep that pressure, keep that pace on her, and really just wear and tear on her until she breaks. Because we really don't know the ground game of Stephanie Luciano. She has a relatively unproven ground game. I mean, we've seen her against Talita, but we've seen her twice against Talita. So that really doesn't answer any questions in terms of her ground game. I feel like Sam Hughes can exploit the ground game and fare even better in the striking department, outstriking and outworking a Stephanie Luciano. If she has any troubles in the striking department, she will throw it back to that grappling area and will get the better of a Stephanie Luciano. And let's go ahead and look at the odds here with Sam Hughes sitting at a plus 190, Stephanie Luciano sitting at a negative 225. The odds are fairly right, but to be completely honest, they're wide. I think that this should be more of a plus 150 around there, maybe even a plus 125. I feel like it should be more of an even line. Stephanie Luciano still relatively unproven, has only beaten Al Nakar, and really just hasn't shown that she is UFC caliber fully for me to fully believe in her game. I think that I need to see more of her, whereas Sam Hughes has time and time again been up against the best of the best in terms of prospects incoming into the UFC and has showed out against some prospects. Yes, sometimes she loses against the prospects, but I think that the prospects that she has faced in Yasmin Yargi and these other prospects are a lot more tougher, a lot more gritty, and a lot more durable than a Stephanie Luciano. Give me Sam Hughes at plus 190. I think it's great value. I think over 1.5 sitting at a negative 1,000 and over 2.5 sitting at a negative 600 is the money call. I think it hits the scorecards. And I think it's going to be Sam Hughes out dogging, outworking, and outstriking a Stephanie Luciano. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Waldo Cortes versus Ryan Spann. And this is an interesting matchup here. You have Ryan Spann, who is coming up to heavyweight. He's making the transition from light heavyweight to heavyweight. And I honestly think this is a perfect money move for Ryan Spann. I think that it's going to do him wonders. And I think that he's even going to win against a Waldo Cortes, which I know is going to be impressive, or not impressive, a little intriguing to a lot of you. But I think that Ryan Spann, coming off of the win over OSP, was impressive, getting the submission. Then you have the 3 losses to Bogdan Guskov, where he got knocked out, Anthony Smith, where he took the split decision loss, and then the loss to Nikita Krylov, where he got submitted. I get there's a little bit of hesitancy on Ryan Spann because of the prior performances, but I think he can really deliver here. I really do. I think he's going to have the speed advantage. I think he's going to have the explosiveness advantage. I think he's going to be able to enter and exit the pocket against a Waldo Cortes. I also think that he's going to be able to use some of the grappling in a sense as well. I really do. I think he's going to be able to mix it up on the ground and on the feet and get the better of Waldo Cortes. Cortes is coming off of the win against Rebellis Despain, but we all know Despain has a huge hole in his game, and that's a ground game, which Waldo Cortes completely exploited. I don't see him doing that against Ryan Spann. I see this more or less probably sticking on the feet, and you could see a little bit of Ryan Spann mixing in some grappling. But overall, it's going to be Ryan Spann getting the better of Waldo Cortes on the feet with his slick striking and his ability to actually be the faster striker here and the quicker fighter on the feet. So I gotta favor Ryan Spann. I mean, Waldo Cortes is no bum, no slouch. Has the win over Arlovsky, has the win over Lukasz Dreski via a hook. But ultimately, I feel like Waldo kind of lacks in the speed department. He has good strikes up the middle. He mixes up his strikes to the head and to the body relatively well, but he's just kind of slow, awkward, and clunky in the striking department. He has good grappling that is used relatively well in terms of taking his opponent down, maintaining them on the ground, and really just landing some nice ground and pound. You don't want to be on the underside of Waldo Cortes, but I do believe Ryan Spann is going to be able to outstrike him, outwork him, and find success in some of the grappling exchanges. So give me Ryan Superman Spann over Waldo Cortes. And let's look at the odds here. With Waldo Cortes sitting at a negative 161, Ryan Spann sitting at a plus 141, I agree with these odds. We still have a little bit of doubt in Ryan Spann due to prior performances. Not only that, like I said, he's moving up to heavyweight, so we don't know how he's going to look. I mean, it was 5 months since he last beat OSP in light heavyweight, so we really don't know how he's put on the weight. Is he putting it on really like shredded, or is he going out eating some Wendy's, some Subway, and some fast food restaurants every other day? We don't know how he's putting on this weight, so we're going to have to wait, see how he looks on the scales. But ultimately, I think if he put on the weight successfully and did it healthily, then I think he's going to beat a Waldo Cortes, and I think he's going to do it in dominant fashion. Sitting at a negative 180 for the over 1.5, I would stick away from the rounds. I'm going to be completely honest. Do not choose any rounds on this, because this could go the distance, but this ultimately could end very quickly due to the fact that we have two heavyweights with devastating knockout power. I am going with Ryan Spann to knock out Waldo Cortes. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in the main card opener between Su Young Yu and AJ Cunningham. And this is a very, very interesting matchup here. I have a lot of red flags going off in this fight. I mean, The pick for me is going to be Seung Yu, but the odds are crazy wide, like insanely wide. Not only that, AJ Cunningham is no bum, no slouch. So you have both really impressive fighters on both sides, in which a plus 500 and negative 700 really doesn't make sense, but we'll get to the odds a little bit later. Let's go ahead and talk about both of these fighters. You got Seung Yu, who is coming off of the win over Belgian Jensuli, and then the win over Sawapasi, however you say that, and then the win over Shohei Knows. He has a couple impressive wins, but they are in the road to UFC, and I've said this time and time again, road to the UFC does not have the best competition, but I am going to go ahead and pick Seung Yu to beat AJ Cunningham. Though not facing the best of competition, I do think that the Jusuli win was a good win. He showed that he can out-grapple a grappler and outstrike a relatively good striker as well. Jusuli is a very well-rounded fighter, and he showed that he was the better fighter in both grappling and striking. Not only that, you have the win where it says split decision, but I feel like he absolutely dominated that fight and looked very, very good. His grappling is none other. I feel like he's going to have a grappling advantage here, and he's a very heavy pressure fighter, meaning he likes to be in your face. He likes to really overwhelm you and make you feel the pressure the entire fight. He mixes in his grappling with his striking really, really well. He's got solid striking. He's got solid grappling. Like I said, he mixes it up really, really well, and he knows how to maintain control of you. So I gotta favor the side of Seung Yu. And the side of AJ Cunningham, he's a relatively good fighter. He's coming off of the loss to Ludovic Klein, which isn't a bad loss. He took this on short notice, and he got front body kicked and got technical knocked out. I mean, it's not a bad look, like I said, coming into it in very short notice, not a bad look. Then you have the ground and pound technical knockout over Justice Lamparaz. I mean, ultimately, he faced Stephen Nguyen in his Contender Series debut. He got out-grappled, got outworked by a striker that isn't even a grappler. Now you're going to put him up against a grappler who is a very tremendously skilled grappler, so I gotta favor Seung Yu. I think he has a grappling advantage. Something else to also note is that this is at 135 versus 145, which is what they said on Tapology before, but it is actually at 135, so AJ Cunningham actually having to cut 20 pounds instead of 10 pounds is a huge difference. So there is a little bit of concern on the weight cut for AJ Cunningham, so that this is another guy we are going to have to look out for on Friday. I do think that it is going to tell how this fight goes, how he looks on the scale, whether it's a rough cut, whether he looks phenomenal. If he looks phenomenal, I do think these odds are fairly wide, and I would be very, very careful taking these, because he is a very, very highly skilled fighter with very, very good striking, quick hands. He's got clean combination. He mixes up his shots really well to the head and to the legs. And he did get out-grappled by Stephen Nguyen, which is a striker. But he did show very, very good get-up game against a Ludovic Klein. So there is a little bit of question mark around AJ Cunningham's ground game. So I gotta favor the side of Seung Yu. And Seung Yu sitting at a negative 625. AJ Cunningham sitting at a plus 450. I like Seung Yu. I do think that the odds are very wide, like I said. I mean, time will tell when we see AJ Cunningham on the scales and how he looks. That will ultimately really tell you if you should be throwing down on a negative 625. But ultimately, there are still question marks around AJ Cunningham's ground game, and I think that Seung Yu can definitely exploit that and find some success in the striking department. So give me Seung Yu to beat AJ Cunningham. Over 1.5 sitting at a negative 200, over 2.5 sitting at a negative 118. I like the overs. I think that we could see a possible finish, but I think that it's going to be a very tough, gritty, back-and-forth fight between these two in which Seung Yu gets the decision win. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Blackshear versus Cody Gibson. And I love this fight. This is an amazing fight where I got to go with Blackshear. I mean, he has progressively been getting better in terms of his striking. We already know he has a phenomenal ground game. So I gotta favor Damone Blackshear. He's got the win over Cody Stamann where he submitted him. Yes, you have the loss to Montel Jackson where he hit him with a perfect straight left and knocked him clean out. But he recovered well and showed very, very good striking and grappling in this win against Cody Stamann. And then you have the loss to Mario Bautista, who is a top-ranked opponent with a very, very good skill in terms of fighting. And then you have the win over Jose Johnson, which was a very rare twister. And then you have the knockout over Luan Laceta. I feel like Damone Blackshear is a very, very well-rounded fighter that has progressively been working on his striking, like I said prior, and has been looking phenomenal in the striking. His hands have been getting quicker. He's been using that long, stiff jab a lot better to kind of keep that range and keep his opponents at bay. He likes to strike from the outside, so you're going to see him use that jab and see him use that distance to his advantage. And he's got snappy high and low kicks to also maintain that distance. Not to mention, if he has any trouble in the striking department against Cody Gibson, he can fall back on the grappling. He has great grappling. He has solid takedowns. He knows how to advance positions. He's got quick transitions and tricky submissions. I gotta go with Damone Blackshear. I think anywhere this fight goes, it's gonna favor him. Striking, grappling. I think he's gonna be better than a Cody Gibson. Yes, Cody Gibson is no bum, no slouch. He is coming off of 2 wins where he beat Chad Enhaliger, who is 38 years old. Then you have the win over Brian Keller, 38 years old. These guys are both on the later end of his career. Anytime Cody Gibson has faced young, promising prospects with good grappling abilities, he has lost. Miles Johns, lost to him. You have the loss to Brad Katona before that. He has lost to very young, promising prospects with very good ground game and get-up ability. So I gotta favor Damone Blackshear. I think that he's going to have the advantage in terms of striking, in terms of grappling. I think anywhere this fight goes, it's gonna favor Damone Blackshear. So give me Damone Blackshear to beat Cody Gibson. And let's go ahead and look at the odds here, with Damone Blackshear sitting at a negative 460, Cody Gibson sitting at a plus 360. I like Blackshear. Like I said, I think in every single aspect of the fight game, he's going to be better than Cody Gibson. Whether it's striking, whether it's grappling, he's going to be better. Over 1.5 sitting at a negative 375, over 2.5 sitting at a negative 205. I think that Damone Blackshear is live to get a submission finish. I really do. The way he's able to advance positions and get those quick transitions and find the tricky submissions, I think he's going to get it. I really do. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Alexander Hernandez versus Kurt Holobaugh. And this is a banger. This is going to be a absolute slugging warfare. I mean, these two are going to go to town on each other. This has potential fight of the night written all over it. I am going with Kurt Holobaugh over Alexander Hernandez. And I know it's going to shock a lot of you, but I actually believe Kurt Holobaugh could definitely pull this off. He is coming off of the win over Kyan Kluski, where he had a phenomenal performance, absolutely applying the pressure the entire fight, walking down Kyan and just delivering some brutal strikes straight down the middle, some nice hooks, some nice counter shots, and also mixing in some grappling. I like Kurt Holobaugh. He is an absolute savage, an absolute dog, and he will fight for your money. He is tough, gritty, and he is just honestly an absolute savage. He will not let you beat him. He's got good striking. He's got a quick, stiff jab. He mixes up his striking with his grappling really well. He's got solid grappling to fall back on if his striking is, if he's having any trouble in the striking department with strong takedowns. And he's got a relatively good takedown defense. So I got to favor Kurt Holobaugh. On the other side of it, we have Alexander Hernandez, who won against Austin Hubbard, but is a very, very close fight. A very tit-for-tat, back-and-forth fight where, honestly, Austin Hubbard could have got the better of him. It was that close. And then you have the loss to Damon Jackson, which isn't a bad loss. Like I just said, Damon Jackson is a very good, talented prospect. And then you have the loss to Bill Algeo, the win to Jim Miller, who's 40 years old. And then you have the loss to Billy Quarantino. I feel like Kurt Holobaugh could definitely push Alexander Hernandez to his limits, really put a pace on him, and really just outwork, outstrike, and outdog him. I really feel as though Kurt Holobaugh has that extra, mile in him, whereas Alexander Hernandez doesn't really have that extra mile, and I feel like Kurt Holobaugh can mix it up on the feet and in the grappling department and find success in striking exchanges and grappling exchanges and get the better of Alexander Hernandez. And let's go ahead and look at the odds here with Alexander Hernandez sitting at a negative 210, Kurt Holobaugh sitting at a plus 180. I like Kurt Holobaugh. I really do. Not to mention, Kurt Holobaugh did beat the crap out of Austin Hubbard, had him in some dangerous positions before finishing him, whereas Alexander Hernandez took a very close, controversial decision over him. So I know it's not MMA mass, but I think Kurt Holobaugh can definitely outdog him and really just put a pace and really just outwork him. That is why I'm going with Kurt Holobaugh sitting at a plus 180, over 1.5 sitting at a negative 375, over 2.5 sitting at a negative 200. I think over is the money call in this fight. I think it hits the scorecards, and I think it's Kurt Holobaugh walking away with the decision victory. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Kevin Vallejos versus Seung Woo Choi. And I like this. This is another great matchup in which Kevin Vallejos is going to absolutely starch the hell out of Seung Woo Choi. I mean, I'm going to be completely flat out honest with you. Woo Choi stands no chance at all. I mean, if you look at who he's faced, he got knocked out by Steve Garcia. Not a bad look, but did get starched. Then you have the win over Jarno Aarons. Then you have the loss to Trezano where he got counter left hook knocked out cleanly. And then you have the loss to Holobaugh. Then you have the loss to Alex Caracas via submission. I mean, Woo Choi is the definition of a mediocre fighter. Whereas if we go over to Kevin Vallejos, let's look at who he's fought. He beat Cam Teague via knockout. He beat Contreras via knockout. Beat another person via submission. And then lost to Gene Silva in his UFC contender debut. He didn't get starched by Gene Silva. He went toe-to-toe with him, had some moments of his own, and showed that he's a really good fighter, but ended up losing. I mean, Kevin Vallejos is a promising prospect on the rise with dangerous striking abilities. I mean, his hands are quick. He's got crafty combinations. He's got that devastating knockout power. He mixes it up to the head and to the body really, really well. He's got snappy high and low kicks. Not only that, he's got a good grappling skill set as well to fall back on if he has any trouble in the striking department. So he's a very well-rounded fighter. Anywhere this fight goes, it's going to favor Kevin Vallejos. You're going to see Woo Choi probably try and grapple with him. But I think Kevin Vallejos, his grappling abilities are really good defensively. So he's going to keep this on the feet and he's going to outstrike, outwork, and land the knockout shot on Woo Choi. I really don't see Woo Choi lasting past the second round. I really don't. I think Woo Choi has a tendency to overextend, leaving himself open to counter shots, and you can't do that against somebody like Kevin Vallejos, who has really, really good counter striking abilities and devastating knockout power. So give me Kevin Vallejos via knockout. And Kevin Vallejos sitting at a negative 600. Woo Choi sitting at a plus 425. Obviously, the odds makers agree with me. I think Kevin Vallejos is absolutely going to starch a Woo Choi, and I think it's going to be in under 2.5. Sitting at a negative 210, under 2.5 is the call. Under 1.5, sitting at a plus 110. You could be risky and take that plus 110. I honestly think that he could starch him in the first round. That's how confident I am in Kevin Vallejos. So give me Kevin Vallejos via knockout. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in the co-main event between Elizeu Zaleski versus Chidi Njokuani. And the pick for me is going to be Zaleski. I think Zaleski can beat a Chidi Njokuani. He's faced somebody similar in terms of like tagging you and exiting the pocket in Randy Brown, even though I think Randy Brown is a little bit slicker and a little bit better of a striker than Chidi. So I think that Elizeu Zaleski can get the better of him. He knocked out Zach Scroggin, which a lot of people were hype on. And then you have the win over Abdukar Nurmagomedov via split decision. You have the draw to Renat Fakhretdinov. And then you have the win over Benoit BSD. I mean, Zaleski is a very tough, gritty opponent. He's going to be in your face the entire time. He's going to be applying the pressure the entire time. He's not going to let you rest. Not only that, he's a very well-rounded fighter with a heavy hook. He's got nasty hooks on the inside. He's got devastating knockout power. He's got clean counter-striking abilities. He's got snappy high and low kicks. And he's got a good grappling skill set to fall back on if he has any trouble. He's got quick transitions, tricky submissions, and he's got very, very good jiu-jitsu. So I gotta favor the side of Zaleski. I think he's got a grappling advantage. I think striking-wise, I'm gonna favor Chidi a little bit in terms of striking. I think he's got a little bit better of striking, but I do think that Zaleski can mix in his grappling with his striking a lot better on Chidi Bang Bang, where Chidi Bang Bang kind of just has to rely on keeping this on the feet. He's got to hope that his grappling stands up defensively, snubbing the takedowns, which is where I think he kind of has a little bit of a suspect ground game in. And he has a little bit suspect of a chin, to be completely honest. You have the loss to Michael Elizeu where he got knocked out. Then you have the loss to Gregory Rodriguez where he got knocked out. You have the loss to Albert Duraev. And then you have the wins over Jared Gooden and Reese McKee, who are relatively mediocre, to be completely honest, in the welterweight division. They really are. They are not some of the best. Whereas you have Zaleski, who is number 23, or top 25, my apologies, in the UFC. I really think that he's experience-wise a lot better, skill-wise a lot better. Not to mention, something I do want to mention that is a huge ordeal is the fact that Chidi has stated that he has a rough cut to that 170. He feels exhausted. He feels very weak. So that is something else to note. He has a suspect chin, suspect grappling, and he's having trouble with his cutting and saying that he's weak and exhausted. So there is too many red flags for me to pick Chidi Bang Bang. So that is why I'm going with Elizeu Zaleski. I think he's going to be able to get the better of Chidi on the feet and in the grappling department and overall beat a Chidi Bang Bang. Sitting at a negative 200 for Zaleski and Chidi sitting at a plus 170. I agree with the odds. I really do. I think Chidi Bang Bang has a suspect grappling game. He has a very good striking skill set, but we're going to see how he fares against a Zaleski, who is a very well-rounded fighter and can take this not only down to the ground, but also keep it on the feet and possibly be able to enter and exit the pocket and outstrike a Chidi Njokuani. I get that Njokuani has a very big reach advantage, but he tends to fight more like a smaller fighter in terms of fighting on the inside. So I favor Zaleski over Chidi. Over 1.5 sitting at a negative 185. Over 2.5 sitting at a negative 240. I think this fight goes over, surprisingly. But we could see Zaleski land a submission finish, though I think it's going to be a very tit-for-tat back-and-forth fight where Chidi, or Zaleski rather, gets the decision win. And let's go ahead and run it to the main event of the evening. And if you guys haven't, make sure you guys like and subscribe and tune into the flock. We do members only lives, members only shorts, members only videos, as well as members only group bets every Wednesday, where we get into a Discord, talk about our bets and why we chose them. So make sure you guys join in the description below, and let's go ahead and get to the main event in Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze. And this is actually a rematch. This is a rematch that happened prior, and the winner of it prior was Marvin Vettori, and I think he's going to win it again. I really do. He's beat him once, and I think he can beat him again. I think Marvin Vettori, though not fighting for a year and 8 months, he was dealing with the injury. He recovered really well, and he has been... He's progressively been in the gym and been training. So I think Marvin Vettori can do this. He lost to Jared Cannonier, and Cannonier just beat Gregory Rodriguez in a back and forth. Seeing as he's 40 years old and still has it, I think that Jared Cannonier is an absolute dog. So this is not a bad loss. And then you have the win over Roman Dolidze before that, where he beat him before. And something that he did before tremendously well was those inside shots, being able to counter strike Roman Dolidze as he's trying to enter the pocket. I think that Marvin Vettori is going to do something similar here. Again, getting the better of Dolidze on the inside. You have the loss to Robert Whitaker, the win over Paulo Acosta, and the lost Israel Adesanya. I mean, Marvin Vettori has been in there with the best of the best time and time again, has showed out time and time again amongst some of the best against Paulo Acosta, against Roman Dolidze, and he had moments in the Jared Cannonier fight. So I gotta favor Marvin Vettori. I think that he can get the better of Roman Dolidze. I think that his striking has looked a lot better. He has the nasty knockout power. He's very good at mixing in his grappling with his striking, and not only that, he has a very good inside boxing approach against Dolidze. I mean, as Dolidze gets angrier and starts trying to press the pace, you can see Marvin Vettori just kind of being super calm, calculated, and finding the counter strike as he comes in, the counter hooks as Roman Dolidze comes in. He leaves them open. He makes simple mistakes, and I feel like Marvin Vettori can easily counter and exploit them. I really do. I think that a similar thing is going to happen to the previous fight, but I do think that Marvin Vettori could actually end it early. I really do. I think that his counter-striking abilities are going to look a lot crisper. I think we're going to get a 2.0 of Marvin Vettori where he's going to come out and he's going to absolutely deliver a phenomenal performance against Roman Dolidze. And it's no knock to the Roman Dolidze. He's no bum, no slouch. He's coming off of 2 wins, one over Kevin Holland and the other one over Anthony Smith. But let's be honest. When I say Kevin Holland and Anthony Smith, within the past 12 months, have they not looked awful? Have they not reached the end of their career and started to look a little bit more awkward and clunky and just not their old selves? I believe so. So I got to take these wins with a grain of salt. I mean, other than these two, he's lost to Nasruddin Imavov, which isn't a bad loss, and then the loss to Marvin Vettori previously. So I really think that Roman Dolidze has, honestly, he just hasn't faced anybody at the level of Marvin Vettori, to be completely honest. Kevin Holland and Anthony Smith are just at the later end of their career and just not the same. Let's just put it like that. Flat out, that's exactly how it is. They are not the same. Those wins aren't as impressive as they used to be and don't hold the same value as they used to hold. So I gotta favor Marvin Vettori. I think he's gonna get the better of Roman Dolidze. I think counter striking on the inside is gonna be the key factor here. I think that he's going to find those openings and he's going to exploit them on a Roman Dolidze. And let's look at the odds here. Sitting at a -170 for Marvin Vettori. Roman Dolidze sitting at a +145. I agree with the odds. He's beat him once and he can beat him again. I think the dirty inside boxing that he brings, I think Marvin Vettori is going to use that to exploit the openings that Roman Dolidze leaves as he gets overzealous and tries to pressure you too much and leaves himself for openings. Over 1.5 sitting at a -800, over 2.5 sitting at a -460, over 3.5 sitting at a -310, over 4.5 sitting at a -225. I think under 4.5 sitting at a +170 is the money call. I think Marvin Vettori is going to learn from his previous fight with Roman Dolidze, and I think he's going to find the openings, and I think he's going to exploit them even more and find a knockout shot. I really do. I think Marvin Vettori via knockout is the call. And if you guys haven't, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button and let me know what you guys think of the video in the comments below. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.